And it's good to hear that you were in a way diagnosed to be a biosemiotician. I think it happens to people that they do some work in other domains and then they are diagnosed as biosemioticians. So
yeah, it was a discovery, because here in Portugal at the time and even now there are no biosemiotics.
yeah.
And it was a very lonely pathway. I had my doubts. I reflected. I reformulated my own hypothesis, and then I came to this framework, which I presented in 2007, and then developed the model in 2010. Well, it's something I really believe and that I take and that I took to artificial cognition when I started working and giving my collaboration at ISR, where there are only engineers and as a linguist and a biosemiotician. As you will see further in this presentation, I try to give my point of view of what I think, what I believe is needed to build, to produce really intelligent or partially intelligent artificial entities, because what we have now, it's not exactly that. But that's all. When you want me to start, I may start. So maybe I can start with this quotation I took from Guattari, by Guattari. As you can see, I chose this fragment. Machines are nothing other than hyper-developed and hyper-concentrated forms of certain aspects of human subjectivity. It will be possible to build a two-way bridge between human beings and machines, and once we have established that, to herald new and confident alliances between them. I chose this quotation, and not because I agree with it 100%, but and in our discussion, you can also discuss this, of course. But in fact, artifacts, technological artifacts, machines, as we call them, they reflect our social models. They reflect the needs of a certain society, of a certain civilization, and by reflecting them, they of course they reflect aspects of human subjectivity, though they are objects, but they reflect these needs that individuals or societies have, the challenges they want to overcome. And in this sense, I completely agree with Felix. I don't agree so much with the establishing of alliances, because in fact, we establish alliances between people. We don't establish alliances with machines, with tools. We co-act with tools. We don't even cooperate, because cooperation means an intentional act on the part of both parts. We co-act, we join action, okay? But we don't establish alliances, we don't collaborate, etc. So this tendency, and you find these words, these concepts, collaboration, etc., in robotics books, but this is totally wrong in my modest opinion, of course. And these, but concepts, as we have this evolving technological framework, also our concepts are also evolving. A basic assumption of this presentation is, I have referred to it some moments ago, autonomous artificial entities have to reproduce the semiosis that binds life forms to their environments in order to function in an intelligent-like way. And this is something I believe, and it is something that I think we are going towards to. We are going even without thinking in biosemiotics terms. In fact, AI approaches are coming closer and closer to this assumption. And this is something that I am really excited to see. Another thing I want to refer is in the title, I chose designing autonomous and artificial entities and not intelligent artificial entities. And this was on purpose because, in fact, there is this kind of mismatch even in the AI field. People talk of AIs, artificial intelligence systems, and people also talk about autonomous systems. And to me, this is not really very correct because autonomy, it presupposes intelligence. You cannot have autonomy if you don't have intelligence, or at least a degree of intelligence that allows you to face the challenges and the prompts of your environment, either if you are a life form or an artificial system. So it's kind of redundant to talk of autonomous intelligence, and it is totally, in my opinion, incorrect to distinguish autonomous systems from intelligence systems. So this is one of the things that is also the language, the concepts that are still evolving as the old framework is, and sometimes there are still these little things that are not so correct. I've just put this picture here to point out how in this billion years time frame that is just our perspective of the evolution of natural forms.
Isabel, I just wanted to ask you, do you prefer to give your talk and then all questions at the end, or can we interrupt you? How do you prefer?
You can. I don't know. If you have just a certain amount of time, maybe it's better for me to deliver, and then when the time is over, you tell me, okay, you stop because we have to have the questions now. Because if you make the questions, I'm happy, but I'll start talking, and then. And then I don't know.
I was thinking just to ask you, maybe to kindly ask you just one thing, because I think that
you can, of course.
Most of the crowd here is cognitive scientific crowd. So can you go back on your slide to the word semiosis, which might be, how can we put it in a simple sentence that is, you know, not all the people I think in this room are familiar or comfortable with the word. So
Joanna, but two slides ahead, they are going to understand what semiosis is.
Super.
Okay, in fact, semiosis, but I can say it now. Semiosis is in my theoretical framework, a dialectic relationship that binds a life form, a cognitive architecture, um, and the environment this cognitive architecture is embedded in. And it's the relationship, dialectic relationship, in which the cognitive entity um, um, identifies in a certain environment, identifies certain patterns, recognize them as meaningful, and according to these patterns, it reacts, it behaves in a certain way. So this is semiosis. It's a meaning assignment by a cognitive entity to the patterns, to the meaningful patterns that emerge in its environment. I don't know if I was clear enough.
Yes, I think also it will.
Yeah, I'll go back. I'll go back to this in now. Now. Okay, so I refer to these as key universal existential factors. Okay, it means that they are common. These what I have designated as existential factors, they are common to all life forms. So all life forms, whether they have existed a million years ago or they are alive now, all them are embodied. It means they have a specific cognitive architecture. Okay, it's a corporeal architecture, cognitive because it allows cognition, and cognition here is taken in a broader perspective than cognition. When people talk about human cognition, okay, they refer to um, specific scope of cognition. Cognition is here taken as the capacity any life form has to interact with its environment, to react, to evolve, and to exist. Okay? As intelligence is also not human specific. Intelligence is um, um, an endowment of all life forms. Okay, there are different forms of intelligence, but a life form has intelligence if it is capable of autonomously interacting with its environment and living and living. All life forms are embedded in the sense that they have this kind of what UX will refer as a bubble. They have this kind of bubble. It means that in the overall environment, they sense this environment in a certain way, and they cannot go out of that little world that is given to them by their own physicality. I hope we can say this. And it is also situated in the sense that is context determined. It's context determined by the environmental conditions at the time of their being, by their own physical conditions, and by all the circumstances that define the interactions that take place in the framework defined by its lifespan. So though we all live in the same planet, we have different world models. We have different Umwelten. The bat's Umwelt is totally different from the human Umwelt, and the butterfly Umwelt, and the dog's Umwelt, etc. But in a certain, sometimes these different Umwelten, they overlap. They overlap. When species coexist, when, for instance, predators and prey, they coexist in a certain temporal frame. And in this sense, these different Umwelten, they can overlap, partially overlap. Not even human Umwelten totally overlap. So it's situated, because it's as I said, a situated narrative. The life form and its environment define a microcosm, which is a close purpose organization. And the motor of this microcosm is the semiotic process of pattern recognition. Pattern recognition. An entity recognizes in its environment a certain pattern, and this pattern triggers a certain behavior. For instance, the entity is hungry, and in environment emerges a pattern that equals food. Or it's time to mate, and in its environment emerges the pattern reproduce. And these patterns, which are very basic in most basic life forms, are complex, very complex in humans, because they are not just um, um, basic, essentially patterns of survival, but they are patterns that relate to being in a world that is mediated by language, that is symbolically encoded, that has codes, that has rules, that we have to understand, and whose meaning we have to be able to decode. So, bound by this dialectical relationship, the embedded agent and its environment influence each other. They influence each other, and the environment is never a static entity. The environment, the environmental bubble, is also in its process of developing. And the challenge is the adaptation the cognitive entity has to perform in order to have this um, stable world. And life forms, they all adapt. And when this adapting of behaviors is not enough, and in the course of times, they evolve physically. They evolve in order to respond to the evolution of their own environment. And when this evolution is not possible, when evolution is not possible, the life form is extinct, because it couldn't go further in this process of adapting and modifying itself to respond to a different environment. So, as I was saying some moments ago, we are much more complex than the basic life forms. Not because we are so totally different, but because our endowments, which we share with some of them, they have developed a lot. And in this human specificity, I have identified three vectors: a conceptualizing and symbolic capacity, which is fundamental to objectify experience, to be able to talk about it, to reflect, to build a consciousness and a capacity to reflect on previous narratives. It's also fundamental to be able to produce our and pass to different generations our knowledge, what we have achieved in terms of experimenting, in terms of changing our worlds. And we can do this because we have this symbolic capacity. Um, our capacity our capacity to change our environment, to generate different environments, to produce tangible and non-tangible forms, to produce art, to produce all those beautiful things we can do. And all associated with this, our tool making capacity, which is um, also something we share with other species. Other species use little sticks, little things to help them to be able to achieve this or that, but it's only human beings that have developed their tools from the primitive stones to the point we are now. So these are three vectors that I would distinguish in what concerns human beings and make us a bit more complex. So tools, just something. Tools where everybody knows, primarily body extensions. In the second half of 20th century, we have the revolution brought by ICT technologies and their developments, which helped to produce tools that have gained autonomy or partial autonomy, and apparently no longer need humans for their functioning. So scientific and technological endeavor continually advances and accumulates over time, and this is a very important property. This accumulation over time, experiments, they are made, they are registered, they are reflected later. Scientists come to the conclusion that this was not correct because of this and that. They advance, but this knowledge always accumulates, and it's an inheritance we can share. It's as the very evolution of humankind. Also, these technological tools they also develop. We can situate this development from the first industrial revolution until now. If we look of the time span, how fast these things have been going on. The other day I was listening that radio was just invented 100 years ago, and I thought it isn't possible. 100 years ago, this is such a short time. So many things have happened We are so distant from that time. But it's really, really, really going fast with ICTs and growing exponentially. And this development of new machinery brings new processes, new lifestyles, and ultimately new umwelten. Because our world is not just the purely physical, social, economic world. It has incorporated a very, very strong digital part, and we can say that presently our worlds are in fact at least hybrid, and the proof is here. um, Arendt pointed out that tools, exactly this, that tools and implements have become an inalienable part of human existence. And human beings, they adapt to these new technologies. These new technologies, they produce, as I said, new lifestyles, they produce new social economic frameworks, and in fact they change our society. So innovation is in fact driven by the very evolution of society and its evolution throughout historical times, and it emerges as a consequence of the goals that a certain society, a certain community wants to address. Um, in the case of artificial entities, namely in the case of robotics, one of the aims of the first roboticians was to free human beings from, it's the 3Ds, the so-called 3Ds, dangerous, dirty, and dull tasks. This was an honorable dream, um, to give a better life to people, so that deep mining could be performed by robots. In the case of nuclear decommissioning could be performed by robots. And that very dull tasks as in factories could also be produced by these artificial entities. So these systems are in fact ultimate form of technological sophistication. Joanna, I just wanted to ask you, please, when tell me the time, because I'm not controlling it, and when I have only 10 minutes or 5, tell me so that I can eventually skip some of the slides. Okay.
I think we still have about 15-20 minutes just for your talk, and then we will have half an hour.
Oh, okay. I was worried. Okay. Thank you. So these tools, and I insist in keeping the word tools to designate them. In one of it was published, I think, in 2021, 22 maybe, I don't know. A book which I have curated, we titled The 21st Industrial Robot, When Tools Become Collaborators. And I chose this title not because I believe that robots are capable of collaborating with human beings, but because I believe exactly that they cannot collaborate, but they cannot even cooperate, but they can certainly co-act. And by co-acting, being able to execute tasks, to common tasks that produce a certain achievement. Also, the 21st, I dedicated that book to the 21st industrial robot because, and this is a parenthesis, because I believe that though we have the so-called social robots, as those operating in airports, giving flyers to tourists, or in retirement houses, or to stimulate patients or people that live there. I believe that the real social robots are presently being developed by in industrial contexts, because they have this challenge to have these machines that previously were encaged. They were not interacting with human beings. They were encaged. People was not allowed to come closer to them because they could kill accidentally, of course. They were encaged, and nowadays they are operating, they are standing side by side. And this is a real social environment. Though people traditionally don't consider this a social environment, this is in fact, in my modest opinion, the most challenging social environment we have presently. So that the machine has to be not just adequate to the function it is supposed to perform, but it has to be adequate to interact with the user, the human that he stands next to it, and the problems that emerge from this interaction, from this need of communication, are very, very interesting and very social. So that's what happened. By acquiring autonomy, so-called autonomy, we assist to this what I called ontological shift. It's the one of the most important changes in the way we interact with machines, because so far all artifacts were purely instrumental. And I've given this example in Copenhagen, which, so it's an example, it comes often to my mind. We can have this simple argument structure. X, a human being, okay, writes Y, a letter, a card, or an essay, whatever, with Z. And this Z or Z is either a pen, it can be a pen, I write with my pen, my beautiful pen, it writes, Z writes beautifully because it's excellent. I can also write with my computer, just as a tool. But when I say ChatGPT writes or wrote a beautiful essay, I'm saying something totally different, because in the first argument structure, the agency is performed by X, never by Z. Z is just has just an instrumental role. It cannot, the pen cannot write alone, and even the computer, not an intelligent computer, a normal computer or a typewriter cannot write alone. But if I ask one of these Lala M's to write me an essay, please, I need an essay about something, and it produces this essay, there's a form of agency involved here. And this shift is the most important change in our, in my opinion, in our civilizational framework. Very, very important. So in order, going back to the word models, in order to navigate the physical or digital worlds, interacting with human beings, following social rules, adequately co-acting in performing tasks, artificial intelligence systems need an internal representation of these worlds. They need a world model. I would say they need a Umwelt. So you can think of the concept of Umwelt, extend the concept of Umwelt from the physicality of life forms and their environments, the bubble, the meaningful bubble that a certain cognitive architecture established with overall environment, this representation of a world, we can extend this to an artificial reality. I mean, we can think of an algorithm that evolves in a certain data set that is, of course, fed by human beings, and that in this data set, according to data set, produces a world model that allows it to make predictions according to that data, to make predictions, to eventually make decisions. I think this concept of Umwelt makes all sense in what concerns artificial entities too. So a world model is part of an AI system that builds an internal representation of an environment and uses it to simulate future events within that environment. We can have this in finances, we can have this in health systems, we can have this when we are in retailing, when we are interacting with our website, we are interacting with this website, and there are these, and there is this data that is captured, and that relates the points in the screen where you look at, that relates the time that your eye gaze fixes on something, that relates your preferences, the things, the very website, the things you choose there, and by converging all this data relative to you, the algorithm is capable of making predictions in what concerns your potential behaviors, in this case, in terms of consumer And the other day I was talking with someone working in the retail, in online retail, and he was telling me that the algorithms they are working with in his business use seven distinct data sets and for each individual. And all these data concerning the eye gaze, concerning the time I take looking at this or that, all this data converges and defines the type of consumer and defines its interests, etc. This has lots of not just of privacy issues, but others that we can discuss later. So these models aim to capture not just dynamics of the world, but dynamics of its inhabitants, which involves also building realistic models of human behavior encountered in this world, whether this world is the physical world, whether this world is the digital world. Yann Lecoin, who is one of the top AI scientists, he has been theorizing a lot about how human beings build these representations, these what he calls also world models. And his hypothesis is animals and humans have only one world model engine, which is dynamically configurable for the task at hand. According to the task, okay, I must say this is a very simplified thing, but according to the task, human beings and animals, they immediately know how to react, how to act, how to behave, at least in normal conditions. About these world models, I just decided to mention the LLMs, the large language models, the ChatGPTs, etc., and the contribution they have been giving to the development of AI systems, putting them in the hands of nearly everybody, and with also the negative component that this may have, but in fact bringing a substantial development to the traditional deep learning and neural networks systems. They are huge, as you know, huge data sets with a capacity for prediction that increases substantially. The more they are fed with data, the more competent, let's say this word, the more competent they are producing these responses to the prompts that are made. Of course, these LLMs, they come in line with the natural processing tradition that took place many years ago. But in fact, they have brought a substantial advance to the AI framework. So they are capable of predicting the next token in a sequence, and I had a first quotation in the previous slide. You shall know a world by the company it keeps. This is something every lexicographer knows. And when these LLMs they emerge, let's say like this, I immediately remembered the work at the Academy of Sciences. You know, it was many years ago. It was in late 80s, 90s. Um, uh, we worked with corpora. It was a time that the big corpora, linguistic language corpora, were being constituted. And we had these contexts produced, shown to us in the computers, where we could identify the patterns, the syntactic patterns that were generated by a certain word. And in fact, this you shall know a word by the company it keeps. It says everything, because if you are making a dictionary and you have these words and you list all the contexts in which this word can appear, you are able to identify the subtle um, um, nuances of significance that arise with the different or very, very, very slight syntactic organizations or frameworks. So I was really excited to learn about this LMS. So the more sentences they incorporated, the better they are at generating new ones. Okay. And they are also not just reduced to the mere language data sets, but they are starting to also incorporate images. And this incorporation of images is what is going, everybody in the business says it, to make the big difference in a very short time. So big data, big models, better knowledge of the world, let's say, uh, being better at giving a correct response to the prompts. As I said, they have started building data sets that are not just constituted by a language, but they are also constituted by videos, audios, etc. And the aim is to produce general world models that will be able, looking at, for instance, looking inside brackets, by identifying a part of a car in an image. For instance, or being able to reproduce this or that visual pattern, or being able to reproduce this or that, um, um, or generate, of course, and generate acoustic patterns, or generate visual patterns. Um, um, the enterprise that OpenAI that produced ChatGPT has in fact started to have this AI that can create images. You ask, I want an image of this, and it generates the image. So, as Anastasis Germanidis wrote, and I found this 2 days ago. I didn't I didn't even know this work of these people. We believe the next major advancement in AI will come from systems that understand the visual world and its dynamics, defining what we can call general world models. And these general world models, that's the part where I wanted to come to, they are really, at least theoretically, very close to the traditional notion of Umwelt. So when they are available, we'll no longer have the.
Can we, because we would like to have some time for discussion, so.
Yeah, tell me when you want me to finish.
I think in 5 minutes, something like that. Is it possible?
How many minutes? How much time?
5 minutes.
5 minutes? 5 minutes? Okay. How long will this be a relevant question? Having to answer this, are you a robot? Everybody knows this question. Okay, and why is this? Exactly because artificial entities have this difficulty in recognizing images of objects that are not they are not incorporated in the prototypical configuration. So when they are upside down or so, they are not identified. And those general world models, they can be a solution, a good solution for that. And now I want in these 5 minutes to present you the Monarch robot. This robot that was produced 10 years ago and is still something that I go back to because of all the work that we had to perform to produce this. I want to emphasize the importance in producing any artificial intelligence system, either embodied or non-embodied, the importance of context. I mean the framework of reference, okay, and who is going to be the user? Who is going to be the user? What's the functionality? And how this machine is going to be designed in order to be able to perform functionally, but also to behave among people. This robot was produced to be a companion at a pediatric oncological hospital in Lisbon. It had to navigate this physical space, interacting with children, calling them by their names, which it recognized by the RFID that the children had in the pulse, and he could know that it was Mary or John or something. It was the shell, the outer shell, was designed according to a survey we performed to about 100 and something, 20 or 30 children aged 7 to 16, and how they expected a robot to, what appearance they expected a robot to have, and what functions they wanted them to perform. According to these results of this survey, we have this database. Designers had made this drafts, and we thought that 2 and 3 were those that met the expectations more closely. They wanted an entity that could project in the chest something for them to see. They wanted it to smile and to have some kind of interaction. And now, okay. Safety was paramount. The robot. It was decided what kind of material it would be made of. Soft material, and the speed it could circulate, so that you wouldn't frighten children or something. And of course, he had these sensors that allowed it to navigate the physical space. It had its touch screen, and it has this basic verbal communication. It can greet, say hello, how are you? Nice to meet you. This very, very, very basic. Also, the lights show when its eyes are twinkling, that he is satisfied, and when it smiles, also to say that, to mention that it is happy. Of course, this expression of emotions, today I see them in a slightly different perspective, but at that time I thought it would be good to be like that. The children, they enjoyed it. Was there for about 3 years. 1 year was the design, and 2 years it was there. We had this user experience assessment. They liked it. In the end of the project, as it was a FP7 project, I said, we cannot take the robot away, because children, they enjoyed the presence of the robot. They know it is a machine. They never thought it was a life form or something like that. But it is very useful to bring some joy to them, and it stayed there. And that's all. Okay, thank you for your attention, and that's it. Okay, thank you. And now your questions, the best part of this.
Okay, thank you, Isabel. That was a sweeping talk from the very, very, very abstract concepts to an actual robot. So now we have the whole spectrum to navigate. So Victor, you can.
Yeah, I wanted to start with the question because I suspect that the discussion might turn to more practical issues, and I have a more philosophical question. I wanted to go back to the question, to the concept of autonomy that you're using. And from what I gathered when you were speaking, you understand that contemporary AI tools, for example, ChatGPT, have some degree at least of autonomy. And this prompts two questions on my side. First of all, I was thinking about, because in some portions, I don't know if you're familiar with Mark Bickhart's work and his views on autonomy, and the kind of like in ecological psychology and the inactive approach, how people are thinking about autonomy in relation to thermodynamical background or thermodynamical conditions of energetic conditions of the system that is in question. So under this framework, for a system to be autonomous, it has to have some ability to prolong its own existence in terms of thermodynamics, of energetics, and stuff like that. And from what I've gathered, in your view, this kind of notion of autonomy that you're using is disjointed from that. So I wanted to know your thoughts about that. This is the first part of this question. And the second part of this question is in the context, going back to the contemporary systems, which I have troubles assigning this kind of autonomy to, because one of the things that I'm wondering about is how embedded they are in the socio-economical practices and institutions that gave rise to them, and how much assignments of agency to those AI tools maybe cover up or introduce like difficulties in understanding the actual agency of those institutions. Because, for example, the example that I was thinking about, if ChatGPT produces a racist answer to a prompt, this is not exactly ChatGPT's responsibility. It's the responsibility of the data set that was used to create it, of the prompt and the prompt writer, and so on and so on. And the kind of like, for example, the fact that it wasn't there weren't enough safety considerations in the development of the interface and stuff like that. So I'm like concerned if we like ascribe too much autonomy to the tool, if we don't hide the actual responsibility of the institutions that create the tool. This is like, I know it's a lot, but it's two questions that I would love to know your thoughts about.
Okay. Well, the sound here was not very good, so I hope I can answer you and have understood the questions. Of course, ChatGPT hasn't autonomy. Okay.
Okay.
As all AIs, they don't really that are data fed. They don't have really autonomy, because autonomy, that's going back to my framework, which is distinct from that one you refer to. To have autonomy, you have to identify the patterns, select the patterns on your own, and all these systems, they have to be fed. Okay, as you know, there are thousands of people, for instance, labeling, working so that these data sets can be and other data sets can be constituted. It's not the system that is in a certain environment and that incorporates what it is supposed to find meaningful, as it happens with life forms. It's a totally different thing. Anyway, it's a certain form, though it's fed by people, and though it has all the problems that this feeding may lead to, as the data set can have biases and so many other problems, though it has it has a certain degree of agency, a certain degree of agency, and this is a fact. And this is a fact. When, for instance, you ask for a credit to the bank, and the bank doesn't give you that credit, not because a human being has made this reflection on your income and all the scenarios, but just because an algorithm decided that you don't have it. This is a form of agency that that must concern everyone. And that's why this autonomy has to be controlled. And that's why all the work in the European Union, and very recently, finally, the AI Act was approved. These risk, these risk criteria, how risky are these contexts? Okay, and there's some are so risky that it's not possible to have artificial entities deciding for themselves on that. And of course, this is something that the institutions they have and governments has a responsibility on this. The problem with AIs is that they are very available. I mean, you can try. If you are a computer scientist, even if you are not a computer science, but you work well with this, you can try this and that, and you can test this. And you can make these experiments. And it's hard to have this control. It's hard to have this control all over the world. And to me, this is one of the main problems. When this group of scientists signed the letter, you know, that letter that was signed to put on hold. Okay, let's stop. Let's reflect on what we are doing and what we want to go and where we don't want to go. This was a naive thing. A naive thing. It was very well intentioned, but everybody knows that anywhere in the world can be a government, a terrorist group, something working in a framework that is not acceptable. But we have to make sure that civilized, developed societies converge and on the standards, on the essential standards that guarantee the transparency, first, the safety, transparency, and the accuracy and equity of these systems.
Yes, so Isabel, but I think you mentioned two notions that seem to have similar contexts, but they also seem to be very different. One is autonomy, the other one is agency. And it is really, I mean, in both cases, we can say, okay, it is we people who give autonomy to artificial systems. It is we people who give agency to artificial systems. Is it so? I mean, and which one? I mean, which one is more dangerous, or are they equivalent? Can you comment on this?
Yeah. They to me, of course, it's this just my opinion. To me, agency is I just talk of human agency. Humans are agents. They behave, they act, moved by certain goals, intentions, performing with certain tools. For instance, I can use ChatGPT to write an essay, but I give the prompt. Please write me an essay about something. Okay. There's no really agency in this case, no real agency. It produces the text but the text was not even, it's more a compilation of all the data all the data that it has incorporated about the topic, and that it gives back to me in a certain style. However, if we are, I wonder if we are talking of an algorithm that analyzes my income and decides that my income is not enough to have this credit for a house, I wonder if there isn't some agency in this.
Okay, so agency would be a social agency.
A capacity,
on the place of in the system. Yeah.
a capacity to make an event happen or change the course of a sequence of events. If they don't give me the credit, I cannot buy the house, etc., etc. If human resources, for instance, human resources, they use these algorithms to make a first selection, of candidates. Okay, and these candidates are selected according to, of course, a data set that gives that probably establishes the profiles that they are aiming at, and it goes through it, and eventually it interacts with people online. It has already happened, and it makes it this selection. And to me, this is a form of agency. To me, this is a form of agency, as well as in court, when, and this has happened, when these processes are analyzed, and when algorithms used in this context come to the conclusion that this guy may be responsible or is responsible for this or that or that. This is a form of agency too. So,
any other questions? Yeah, so there is another question from here, and you can raise your hands on the chat, on the Zoom. On the Zoom.
I have one question about the, because you said that the unwelten of different species can
can you repeat? Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Okay, so you said that the unwelten of different species can overlap, and I would like to ask some questions about that. So what can you give an example? How would that work between human and this autonomous system? Because different species, they have the same environment, and do they now those algorithms that work for a bank or the ChatGPT, do they overlap or no, and how would that work?
Okay. The concept of unfelt overlap was something I invented. So my responsibility if it is a bit unconventional, let's say. In life forms, you accept that that there may be forms of overlap. For instance, wolves and sheep in a certain way, and in their Umwelten, they overlap. Putting in the case of artificial entities, I can think of a situation in which it doesn't happen now. It isn't possible now because technology is not so developed, so that a robot can have at this moment a Umwelt, but imagining that with these general world models this will be possible. We can think of a robot working in an industrial environment with a human being, okay, co-acting, and there must be this Umwelt overlap so that, okay, my meaningful world and its meaningful world come together to have this task performed. So this is my perspective, which is very discussable, but it's my perspective on this.
Okay, so if we are at it, I was really sort of surprised that but I don't know if I understood correctly. That did you say that large language models, for example, if they are loaded with well, corpora of language, sounds, and pictures, that you said that this would consist a model of an Umwelt, because
No.
an Umwelt is something very much felt.
No, I didn't say it. Sorry that if I didn't make this clear. No. I related the LMs. It came to my mind. Those corpora in which in the 90s, in which we identified the patterns. It came to my mind when LLMS appeared. I remembered those, but it's a different thing. It's not the same. But as they are also looking for patterns, okay, it came to my mind that work that was done electronically, going through large amounts of concordances and identifying those patterns. It came to my mind, but this is something different because it's a data set. It's not framed as a sentence in a sentence format. Okay, it's a different now, and it's not capable of producing any entities Umwelt. No, Umwelt is a much richer thing, a much varied thing. But I think those general world models, which are a consequence of the LLMS, they can, I mean, they have the potential, let's say, they have the potential of driving us in that direction. I don't know if they are going to or not, but they have the potential of driving us in that direction.
Okay, because it seems that it would be, I mean, when the word Umwelt was used, by OIC school, etc., it seems that it is in general something of which it would be very difficult to have a model or to have a representation then that you can put in a robot or in an artificial system. So, of course, And also, when you were talking about it, it came to my mind that actually only artificial systems need those models and representations really to act, because we are sort of coupled to the world, and we, in a sense, do not need this database, right?
Yeah, that's the big difference. We don't need the data. We don't need the data set because we are naturally equipped to retrieve those patterns from the overall environment. What happens with artificial systems is that this data set has to be built by human beings and then used by these artificial entities. So the data set and the algorithms are part of the whole artificial structure, let's say like that.
Yeah. Any other questions? Because we are drawing to an end. Our time is running out. But I'm looking at the also the people in the chat. If there is no questions here, anything? Okay, Isabel.